We are going to move into some of the questions that were submitted by the audience. And these are in order. Yes, thank you. Let's talk about disability rights. 1 in 4 Americans have a disability, but 1 in 3 Tennesseans have a disability. What education, healthcare, or accessibility issue impacting people with disabilities do you think the state legislature should address first? Kelly?
I have ideas. I supported my mom. I was a caregiver for her at the end of her life, and for many, many years she was mobility challenged. And that showed me how hard transportation can be for someone who is mobility challenged. You can buy a van to help transport you around, but that is typically not economical for most people. It costs a significant amount of money to have an accessibility van. We have, fortunately, ETHRA here that was a lifeline for us. But the program needs funding, it needs more drivers, it needs more buses. So for me, the very first incentive or very first push that I would make would be to ensure that our disabled persons have the accessibility, transportation accessibility that they need to get to those medical appointments.
Thank you. And some questions?
So I agree with what Kelly said, but I think I would focus on our children and youth that are having IEPs to make sure they are getting the support to be successful in school, and that those supports can carry on to them to the college level. I'm tutoring a young lady right now that's trying to get into LPN school, and I'm having to help her with her math, and she had an IEP. And so I told her to try and go find it to help her with that. But I think that education would help a lot with our workforce and making them successful.
Thank you. As a follow-up to this question, how would you ensure as a legislator that bills like these that you mentioned would be passed regardless of how much they may cost the state? How committed are you to the bills regardless of the fiscal note? Ann?
If it's important, we need to commit to it and spend our money in those places. However, there are solutions that don't, sometimes we go to the most expensive solution. There are solutions. My grandson is on the spectrum, really smart, but he at school wears those headphones because he says, my classmates yap all the time and really, really loud. That is not an expensive accommodation. So there's a lot of things like that we can do.
Thank you. Same question, Kelly.
Well, we've got other ways to bring in the money that we need. We know that we recently eliminated or changed our excise tax laws. That resulted in about $1.5 billion of money going back to untracked corporations who just had to reach up and claim it, and cost us about $400,000 of revenue, and that's recurring. So there are ways that we can find the funding that make sense, that are fair, and when we show that the impact of funding these things benefits the entire community. So when a caregiver for a disabled person doesn't have to miss work to get their family member or their loved one to an appointment, then you've got an economic impact that is positive for that community. Making sure we call out to those and point out that this is worth funding, and then finding those funding streams that are really just waiting for us to come back and take them.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about your experience outside of the work that you do day to day. Someone in the audience wants to know specifically about your experience with writing or passing legislation. Kelly, can you speak to that for a few seconds?
Okay, so transparently, writing legislation is not something that I have experience with, but I think my experience does broadly translate in a way that is going to be very effective. So for example, most of my career as an engineer has been to help create, help edit, and help maintain things like standard operating procedures, guides, manuals, and also give information in a technical way. What this teaches you is that clarity of words matter, because when you are writing something that a person needs to follow to stay safe and save the company money by not having the machine they're working on blow up, you find that you write in a way that translates into the action that they need to do while not losing the technicality that you need for that issue or for that procedure. So that translates to writing legislation, because that is the art of legislative writing. You have to make sure that your legislation gets to the point, is impenetrable, you can defend it, it's not something that people can cut into, and that really follows the same principles of standard operating procedures and technical writing.
Okay, thank you. And same question to you.
So I'm going to take my CASA work again. Y'all know that's my most important volunteer work for me. We get lots of information. We get medical reports, we have home visits, we talk to teachers. We have to put that together in a page or two so that a judge can decide what's going to happen with this child. Is this child going to stay in their current placement? Are they going to get pulled into DCS, full DCS custody? And so I think that translates really well. The other experience I have is I am on the NDP Executive Committee woman, and whereas we don't write legislation, we have lots of motions that you have to write and vote on, and so that experience translates.
Thank you. Our next question from our audience asks a little bit about your actual campaign strategies. How does your campaign strategy address the large voting disparity between Democrats and Republicans, specifically in House District 33? Kelly?
I alluded to this early with my campaign introduction, or my introduction for tonight. This is a turnout problem, and I believe when we reach out to those areas that we have failed to reach before, when we have people from different walks of life, different people from different ages, different skill sets, these things will resonate with voters in ways that we haven't had before. With that kind of voter reach, that should help bring out those voters who sometimes just think, I'm just going to sit this one out. I think we have an advantage this cycle because we do know that there's buzz around how important these seats are. So we need to leverage that and make sure that we call attention to the voters, reach them where they're at, find ways to tap in through different markets, digital, as well as the traditional door knocking. But ensuring that we have a message that is new, it's different, and it resonates in a way that it hasn't before is going to be critically important.
Thank you. Anne?
Okay. So, like I've said before, I'm reaching out to all 18 to 35-year-olds. I am hitting 30% and higher Democratic scores. But the other thing I've been doing is I've been out in the community these last 2 years. I go to the Clinton Senior Center and I call bingo, and I get there early and I go around and I talk to everybody, and they were so proud when I was on the front page of the Clinton Courier. So I'm making, and we talk about issues. And so the other thing that I do and will do again this year is I've been going to the county fair, the Anderson County Fair, and standing in a booth and talking to people as they come by. And it's fun, and it's amazing how you can make a connection. And many times I go, I'll go vote for you. Okay.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about the anger and sometimes the challenges that you may experience once you are in the State House. And how will you deal with combative MAGA legislators?
Good question. So I raised twins. At one point I had 3 teenage girls. So I have a lot of experience with anger coming at me. And the main thing is to stay calm, keep your positions, and walk away when you need to. I had a voter I was talking, knocked on the door, and he got all MAGA on me, and I said, okay, we're not going to agree, I'm going to leave. But I said, if I get elected and you got a problem, call me. And so do that kind of thing of, we can't agree now, but if you come back to me, I'll listen to you.
Thank you. Kelly, same question.
We're definitely going to experience that. We've seen it when we watch what goes on in the State House at a regular basis. The key is going to be to keep a cool head. And to do that, it helps to make sure that you are bulletproof on what you're bringing and your propositions. When you have bulletproof information, you can stand on that information and not worry so much about the emotional exchange. Avoid leading questions when they come your way. And you have to learn to recognize them and dodge them as they come to you. But it's also in our best interest, if they're going off, give them the gun and let them shoot with it, right? If they're going, this is all recorded, so if they want to make a scene, keeping your cool is the most important thing you can do. Voters will see that.
Thank you. Our last audience question is going to go back to something that we briefly touched on before when it comes to the challenge of book banning. So Age Appropriate Materials Act has seen the removal of many books from the schools. Renaissance art books have been removed from Oak Ridge High School, and most recently, Roots has been removed from the Knox County schools. How would you work to overturn book banning, especially as this issue is now growing specifically in Anderson County? Ann?
So what I was going to say when Kelly addressed the issue was our state legislature has passed laws that make this work. So we need to work to repeal that. And the example I was going to use was the Oak Ridge schools. It made me cry. I'm in the library twice a week for different clubs. They have at least this much full of books that they pulled from the shelf. They haven't gotten rid of them because they're hoping the law will change eventually. But we need to really make sure people understand the legislation they're passing. And I believe while I should control what books my child reads, I should not control what books your child reads.
Thank you. Kelly?
You know, on a state level, we have passed things that are really enabling this kind of action, allowing fines for people who publish books that are later deemed obscene. This is not an acceptable practice. Locally, this is local control turned upside down. This is taking away not just rights locally, but as Ann mentioned, the right of every parent to decide what their child reads. At the state level, we need to make sure that we repeal these broken laws, get us back to a safe, merit-based standard, and we've had solutions that do work, so we need to make sure that where those exist, we find the common ground and show that these solutions are here, they work. Solutions like if it's deemed to be potentially obscene or controversial, taking it behind the shelf, but not taking it off the shelf, right? Having it still be available. I think there is a ground that we can reach with everyone across the state where we can say, these things are not out in the open, but they're also not trampling on free speech.
Thank you.